Hi everyone, Tasha here, and today we're going to make two fun fold cards, and we're going to create this cool waterfall card and then a WV card fold. We're starting with the waterfall card, and these are really easy to make, and I think people love getting them because they're so interactive. You can make them vertically or horizontally with the same measurements. I'm going to be using items from the kit. I'm using the large Peace Love Fall stamp set. I'm using the fall, the pumpkin, the coffee cup, the pie, and one of the sentiments. I also selected some of the included pattern paper. I love this pretty leaf design and these colors, but you can use any pattern paper you want. I'm also using the included metallic mercury cardstock. I'm using a piece of black Eclipse black cardstock and then a piece of white cardstock. The ink colors are from Color Hive. I'm using blue raspberry, flat white, English mustard, and Eclipse black. We're going to start by cutting our Eclipse black cardstock, and we're going to make both of the bases. The waterfall base on this black cardstock, it measures 1 7/8 by 9. And then the main card base is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So this card will be a standard A2 size card. It's also nice because all of these pieces you can make off of one piece of cardstock. Then with the extra scrap piece, I'm going to cut a center strip or a little panel. And this is cut 1 by 4 1/4. And this is going to hold your waterfall base in place. So it's measured down to that 4 1/4 because it's going to go all the way across your base card. After cutting the black cardstock, I moved on to this really pretty red metallic color. And I'm going to cut 4 squares. These squares are going to be used as matting to the area that we stamp onto white cardstock. And these are cut 2 by 2. So you're going to need 4 of them, one for each panel of our waterfall. This color is really pretty and I think it's great on a fall card. Once I was done, it was time to cut the white cardstock. We're going to also need 4 squares of white cardstock, and this is the part that we'll be stamping on. And these are cut 1 by 7/8 by 1 by 7/8, and you'll need again 4 of them. I decided it was easier just to cut them right away than to stamp and then cut, but you can do whatever works for you. I just wanted to make sure I had the stamping in the right area. With the white cardstock, you'll also need another strip for your waterfall, and this strip is cut at 1 3/4 by 4 5/8. After cutting the white cardstock, it was time to move on to our pattern paper panels. These panels are cut at the same size. I did have a piece of scrap, so in my card it's a little bit smaller, but you're going to need to cut 2 pattern paper pieces, one for the front and one for the back, at 3 1/8 by 5 3/8. After I was done cutting the pattern paper, it's time to do our stamping. Again, I already have my squares, so I know where to position my stamps. And then I'm going to use the pretty blue raspberry on the fall word. I just thought this blue looked great with those leaves, but again, you can use any color for your project. I'm using the smusher tool from Maker Forte, which is my favorite tool to help me get even pressure. I did have to ink it up again and just make sure it had full coverage. When you have a solid word like this, you usually need to stamp more than once, so using your Misty tool and that smusher tool really helps. Next, I'm moving on to the next panel or the next square. For this one, I wanted to use the little coffee cup and the little pumpkin image. I love that the coffee cup is plain, so you can decorate it for any season or put someone's name on it or however you want to do it. But there's also this cute little pumpkin, so we know it's fall and it'll go with our fall theme. For this, I'm using the Eclipse black ink, and this way I can use markers to color it in without having to worry about the ink smearing. I did stamp this one twice as well, just to make sure it was nice and dark. After stamping the little coffee cup and the little pumpkin, I moved on to my sentiment. And this sentiment I thought was perfect for a fall card. Well, all the sentiments are, but I wanted to make sure that it wasn't just too dark. So I used the flat white Color Hive ink color, and this color is so pretty for fall cards. It's the perfect shade of like a lighter tan color. So it's not super dark and it's not a black ink color. It's just like a really nice tan. But I think the way it looks with the greeting is just perfect for the colors used throughout this project. I used my smusher tool again, and again I stamped it twice just to make sure it was nice and dark. Once I was done with that panel, I moved on to the last square. And for this one, I'm using the little pie image. I know I wanted to say pumpkin pie again, probably because that's my favorite pie. But again, I'm using the Eclipse black ink just to make sure it's nice and dark, and then I'll color it in with my Copic markers. And this one, I did need again to use that smusher tool and stamp it 2 times. The smusher tool I find is also great when you're stamping words or greetings, because that even pressure helps that you don't have one side darker than the other from restamping. And here's how all of the little squares looked all stamped out. I love that pop of blue in the word fall, and I like that that greeting was in a brown color. To add a little more color to these squares, I went around the edges with English Mustard Color Hive ink. I love this shade of yellow. It's a really pretty deep yellow, so it's not super bright and summery. It's great for fall cards. And again, it coordinates with the other colors we're using throughout the project. So I just went around with my ink blending brush. I had the darkest color on the edges and then just pulled it towards the center. And it really adds so much color to these little squares. And here's how they look all colored up. Once I was done, it was time to add them to that metallic paper. The metallic paper in person, when you look at the paper in your kit, it just has the prettiest shine when the light hits it. And I think it just doesn't pick up on camera on how pretty it is. So I'm just using some glue runner, and I'm going to attach each one of these squares to that metallic cardstock, and it gives a really pretty frame or border. And you see how that yellow color looks great with that red metallic paper. It's so pretty. I love these colors together. I had this paper once before and used it on Christmas cards, and it looks good with Christmas cards too. So if you don't use up all the paper, make sure you save it for some Christmas projects. And then just have to add the last square. And here they all are, all matted up and ready to be added to our waterfall design. Next, we're going over to our scoreboard, and I'm using the cool Teflon pencil bone folder from Maker Forte. This one's great because it has like a pointed edge, and it works awesome with scoreboards. So I'm going to go and take that waterfall base that we cut, and we're going to score it at 4 different measurements. We're starting at 2 inches, and we're going to score along the long way. So we're going to go 2 inches, and then 2 3/4, 3 1/2, and then the last score line is 4 1/4. And that's really all the scoring we need. So it's very simple measurements again, and you just have to do the 4 score lines. I know it's kind of hard to see on the black paper, so I pulled out my white gel pen just to make little marks in the sections that we scored off, because this is where we're going to add adhesive and attach those little square panels. So I'm just going to use my pen, and hopefully this makes it easier to follow along. And where those X's are is where we're going to add the adhesive. So I'm going to bend each one of the score lines that we just made. And then I'm going to use my Maker Forte bone folder to just make sure I crease all of those score lines. Like all card fold projects, you want to make sure again that you don't skip this step, because we want to have these creases bend since it's going to be a waterfall, so they have to be able to move. We're also going to be adding a strip of glue to the back of the waterfall. So I'm just writing the word glue right here so you can see it. And this is what's going to attach to that center strip that we cut. And we're adding adhesive to each one of these little panels and then again on the back. I'm using some score tape or some tear tape, and I'm just going to put my adhesive right on those little X's that we created. We don't want it to be over that score line, but we want it just under it. And it's easier if you just bend it when you start getting up higher, and this way you can make sure that you don't go over that score line. And then we're going to flip it over and then just put it along that top or the bottom, whichever way you have your paper, but it's on that top portion where we bend it. So we have the 4 lines and then one on the back with adhesive. Next, I'm using my little poker tool from Maker Forte to just help me pick up this paper. I have the hardest time picking up the release paper for adhesive, but the poker tool really helps. And I'm starting from the bottom. I find that that's the easiest way, and then you just build your way up. So then it's the next panel. I'm using that tool again, and then I just bent it so this way I can easily see where that score line is and then position the next square. And I decided to put the little coffee cup and the pumpkin next. This way we had an image since we had the greeting on the bottom, and then I'll put the little pie stamped design above it. And do you see how easy it is with that little poker tool? It just adding that little bit of air and lifting it up, you can pull up that paper so easily. And again, it's also easy to just have your card bended on that score line so you don't go over. And do you see how it's already building up and starting to look like the waterfall design? And then the last panel is going to be the top one. So I decided to do that pretty blue fall stamped card, and we're just going to put that right on top. I like how it looks where we have the fall and then we have some fall images and then the greeting at the end. And then you just pull it and you see it already kind of looks like the way it's going to look when it's done. I'm going to flip it around and pull off that piece on the back. I'm using that same tool, and then I'm going to attach the black center strip. And I'm going to put it right on the bottom of the strip to the bottom of this card. Make sure it's centered because you want the waterfall to be in the center of your card, so then it'll look kind of like this when it pulls up. Do you see? It flips through each one of those squares to reveal your sentiment on the bottom panel. And next it's time to attach this center strip to the card base. We're going to add liquid adhesive to both ends. Make sure you don't put any adhesive in the center or your card won't move. So we just want it on both of these ends where the X is. I'm using the white pen again so you can easily see it. Right there and right there. And just make sure nothing is in that center. If there's any glue in the center, your waterfall will not work because that center area is where we will pull the waterfall up and down. And before I forget, let's add that pattern paper, and I'm just going to use some glue runner for this part. And I'm just going to, again, take my glue runner and attach it to that back base. You can pick any pattern paper that you want, but since the front has that waterfall pull in the center, it really doesn't matter if you have all of the design showing. So I went with the paper that had the bigger leaves for the front, since a lot of it will be covered up. And then the piece I'm using for the back side has the image that I want to be seen more. It has more detail. So that's something to keep in mind too when you're creating this. If you do have paper that maybe has more open areas, that would be a good one to use for the front, since it is covered up by the waterfall part. Next, I'm just going to position the waterfall in that center strip where I want it. You want to make sure that it's close to the bottom so you can pull that waterfall up and down. I'm just going to hold it in place to make sure the glue sticks. And I do find that the liquid adhesive works really well for this part. You can use the liquid adhesive throughout the card, but for this center strip, it just has a really nice hold. And do you see how it looks now? So now it's all attached, and you can pull that bottom and flip through your little waterfall. It's really simple to do once you learn how to do it, and you can make a bunch of these. And then for the bottom part, if you want to have a little bit of an opening, you can just pull this up, and then you can punch a hole on the bottom. And I'll show you how to do that as well. You don't have to, but if you wanted to have a little bit of an opening for the pull tab, you can punch a hole in the bottom. But to do that, we need to attach the back, so this way the back and the front will line up correctly. So I'm just going to use that same glue runner and attach it to the back. And you see how this design has a lot more going on, and I wanted this one to be seen. So then I'm just going to use my circle punch and then punch a hole. And this one, since that Eclipse black cardstock's kind of thick, I had to put it down on my workspace and make sure I pressed it firmly. But then it gives you a little bit of a notch or an opening, so you can easily pull this waterfall part down. And then lastly, we just have to add our strip that goes on the waterfall pull. I kept this one blank because this is where you can write a message to someone, since they won't see it until they pull down on the waterfall. And I just think it's really fun. It's like a secret message. So again, this is optional. You could also decorate it or add more pumpkins or stamped images, but I think it's fun just to write a personal greeting right here, and then when they pull it down, they're flipping through the waterfall, and then they'll see your message to them. Do you see? And then again, the back is really pretty with that pattern paper. And that's the waterfall card. Super easy to make, and you can use that pretty paper that we love to use and make some simple fall cards. So I hope you enjoyed this project, and we'll give it a try. Be sure to share if you do try it. And now we're moving on to our next project. We're going to be making this really cool card fold. It's like a WV fancy fold card. I'm not sure if it has another name. I've made this one for a long time. I've made this different variations of this card, but it's a really fun one, and it's another way to use your pretty pattern paper. I'm going to use that same large stamp set. I'm using one of the greetings and then the word autumn, but this time I'm going to use the Halloween themed pattern paper. And I'll be using the pretty, more of a like a silver gray metallic paper, and then Eclipse black ink, and then grape color hive ink. And I'll also be using Eclipse black cardstock and white cardstock again. We're going to start with the Eclipse Black cardstock and cut our two bases. This one is the center base or the main base of the card, and it's cut 5.5 by 11. And then with the extra piece of cardstock from the one sheet of paper, we're going to cut the center card, and this one is cut 3 by 6. So we're just going to measure it over to the 6 and then trim it down to 3. And then you have your two base panels. That's all you really need for this. Next, we're going to do our scoring. I'm just going to score right on my paper trimmer. And for the smaller panel or the center card, we're going to score it at 3. This is basically like folding this card in half, so you could do that as well, but you could just score it at 3. And next, we're going to score our main base panel. And then this one, again, are very easy score marks. We're going to score it at 1 3/4, 3.5, 5 1/4, and then I have to bring out my little arm again because I have to go all the way over to 7. But again, these are very easy measurements, and that's all the scoring you need to do. Next, we're going to use our bone folder again, and we're just going to kind of crease these, get them loosened up a bit. Just got to make sure this cardstock is pretty thick paper, so I'm just kind of creasing everything just to kind of again loosen it up so it makes it really easy to do my folds in the end. And I'll crease that center card right away as well. I'll crease it again once I do my fold and assemble the card, but this way it kind of gets it moving and makes it really easy to fold into place. And then I wanted a little like scene for my back card, and this is a great card fold to showcase like a pattern paper, especially one that's really cool like this one where it has like a castle and a whole Halloween theme. So I'm just kind of cutting it down so I can see the area of the paper that I want. You can trim it to whatever you want to do, but I wanted to make sure we got a little bit of the moon, a little bit of the castle, and this way that back card has kind of like a Halloween theme. I did go ahead and pre-cut all of the layer pieces. I provided all the measurements with the instructions, so this way we could save some time. But we did have to cut all of the layers from the pattern paper and that smoky silver metallic cardstock. And then what we're going to do is use the metallic paper as the matting again. And then do you see how these spider webs, they kind of, they're cut from the same paper, so they kind of have a design all the way across. That's perfect for this card because each one of those panels you'll be able to see the spider web design. I also cut another little center card for stamping the word autumn and matted it with the same metallic paper. It's a great way to use up your scrap pieces and also use up all your cardstock or pattern paper in these type of projects. I really hate when you make a card and you can't see any of your pretty pattern paper, so I was real excited when we had such pretty paper that we could use a card fold like this to show it off. Next, I'm going in and going to do my stamping. I'm going to stamp the word autumn, but since this is more of a Halloween card, I'm stamping it with the color grape. And this is just a really pretty shade of purple. It's not too dark, again, it's just It's kind of not a light lavender, not a dark purple, but it's somewhere in between, and it's perfect for Halloween cards. After I was done stamping the word autumn for that front panel, I'm going to stamp the sentiment right away. And for this, I'm just using the Eclipse Black ink. I also used my Maker Forte Smusher tool just to make sure again that I had that even pressure. And you see what a perfect image that is. Next, it's time to fold my card into place. What we want to do is have a W for the main base. So we're just going to bend it in place to form the W. And I'm using my bone folder again just to kind of score it and make sure everything is creased. And once we're done, do you see the W? And then it ends with that large panel where we can put our little Halloween scene. We're going to use some glue runner to attach our paper to a silver or the gray metallic paper. I decided to go ahead and mat this layer as well. This way it looked nice and finished. Using the same glue runner, I'm going to attach it to the card. And I'm just lining it up to the edge. It does have a little bit of a black frame around the border as well. And then once I'm done, I'm adding the 3 panels. With this size pattern paper that was included, it just had enough to make 3 panels, but you could also make a 4th panel like I did with my fall example. And you can either use a leftover piece from where we cut the little scene, or if you had a bigger piece of paper, you could just cut 4 panels. But since this had 3, we're just going to use 3 for this project. And then just make sure that you line everything up. And when we position them, we're going to make sure that the spider webs and the little bats, that they're in the right order. Since this was cut from the same piece of paper, it's really easy to do. And then I'm just again using glue runner to attach the panels. Remember, since we're only doing 3 panels, you want to start from the opposite edge of that center card that we put on with the castle, so that outer edge, and then just work our way up. The panel in between these 3 panels and that center card will just be a black cardstock, but you can add another piece of paper there. I'm going to add some English mustard color hive ink around the edges of my sentiment and the word autumn, the same way I did with the waterfall card. I just love the pop of yellow. And this is just so easy to do. Another good color that would work with this Halloween theme would either be to go around it with purple, or you could use a green, and I think that would look really pretty as well. So now I'm just going to add them to the metallic cardstock. And then it's time to add them to that center panel. And this center is like the V. Do you see how it's a W and then a V? So we're going to have it where it folds and then the edges kind of pop out. I did cut a piece of the scrap paper from that has kind of like that castle theme as well, just to add a little bit more color behind the word autumn. Again, this is optional. And then I'm going to put it onto that center V area. So I'm going to put the word autumn in the front. And then I'll put the sentiment in the back. And this is unlike a normal card where it kind of folds inward. This one folds outward, or it pops out at you. So that's one thing to remember with placement. And then lastly, to complete the card, you just have to attach it to the main card base. I'm using the score tape again, and you just put adhesive on both of the outer edges. I just quickly pulled up the adhesive, and what you want to do is fold all of your panels and then kind of position it in the center. So then hold it down when you get it where you want it, and then press down on both sides. And then it should hold in place. Do you see how easy that was to make? This card fold is super simple, and it's great a way to use your pattern paper. And here again is my kind of like the fall themed. So we have the fall one, and then we have the Halloween one. I hope you enjoyed this project and will give it a try. Be sure to share your projects if you do try it, and I hope you guys are having a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.